Brisbane blokes joining. Hey guys, just having some technical problems today with that MS Teams thing. I can see you starting to join now. If someone could please tell me if they can hear me. How's the sound, guys? Just send a message. Thanks, Shannon. And we will wait for others to join, as half of them are probably still looking for some sort of a link that MS Teams should have sent out, but it looks like the links all got sent out blank and didn't include any actual place to link up to the Microsoft Teams meeting, although the problem that I had was that some people were getting a proper invite and had accepted the meeting, but no problem, we can do it on here. It just means it's going to be a little bit harder for you guys to ask questions because you'll have to answer them. Also means that I'll have to wing it because I didn't really intend to do this other than answering your questions about the process so far. But let's just stand by for a few minutes and see if a few more join. We've got 60 at the moment. Virgin blokes as well. Yeah, shade might be in order. So very disappointing to watch the news today, gents, and see that the number of cases in Victoria has now slipped over 700. This is not a good sign for anyone, certainly not in our industry, and it makes you wonder what's going to happen in New South Wales next, which is seems to have 20 odd cases every day, which is really concerning. I suppose a few months ago all of us were just hoping that this COVID thing would be with us for 3 months or so and just whittle away and be gone, but no, Donald Trump was wrong. It isn't just going to magically disappear. It is with us for a while. Personally, I think we should have done like New Zealand did and locked down at level 4 for 6 weeks, and then it could have been gone like it is in New Zealand, and then at least our domestic travel could be in full swing. But unfortunately, people were too eager to get the economy moving again, and now the economy is going to stop because of it. But nonetheless, let's I guess start talking about the immediate problems that face us in the industry, which is not many people travelling on aircraft, and of course this is leading to airlines announcing that they are either in administration or going to have large numbers of job losses, which is something that touches on all of us. And that being the case, of course, I'll probably just talk a little bit about Virgin first. There's a few Virgin guys on here. Virgin, the 5th Administrators Committee of Inspection meeting will be on tomorrow. I don't think much is taking place at these Committee of Inspection meetings. They're just basically updates from the administrator about what is happening with the process. You sort of sit on there for an hour or so, and then you go, and you don't really learn much. But next week, we had a meeting with the ACTU, all the ACTU leaders. We met 2 days ago, and that meeting was with Virgin Management. When I say Virgin Management, not Virgin Engineering Management, I'm talking about higher than engineering. And the announcement this week from Virgin was that the announcement would be put back. So sometime next week, apparently, we will have some idea on what they want to do with the airline, as in how many aircraft they want to keep and how many staff they want to keep. So next week we should know a little bit more for any of you Virgin guys who are watching. Alrighty, I'll start talking about the Qantas process, and this meeting was intended to be just for the Sydney guys, because the message is a little bit different in Sydney. In Sydney we have more than likely a large number of people who would like to remain employed and not enough jobs for everyone. I think that's just a fact of the scenario that is before us, and we can ascertain that from the level of responses that we got to our notice for representation and a rough indication of what people may or may not want to do. Those forms came back from our members 2 or 3 weeks ago, and maybe things have changed since then. With Victoria getting worse, people might be thinking that there may be less work in the interim period until things do finally get back on track. So there may be a few more that want to leave that hadn't indicated so a few weeks ago. I know a mate of mine is now more than likely going to tick the leave box. So we don't know exactly where it's going to land in Sydney, but what we do know is that there are ample jobs everywhere else. There's a lot of people who want to leave in places like Perth and Brisbane and Melbourne, and there will be opportunities to transfer to them bases. So the reason I mainly wanted to talk to the Sydney guys today is because the process from here, or what should or should not be considered in relation to the expression of interest form, is different for those in other states than it is in Sydney. I guess it's same to some degree. We do want as many to take a package to make sure there is as many jobs as possible, but look, I guess the message applies equally elsewhere as well, is that in our view, Qantas have completely botched up the process. They put out the expression of interest forms contrary to what we had requested and were working through with them during consultation. And in our view, it appears as if Qantas had always determined that the expression of interest would come out Tuesday of this week. They never told us that, and no matter what we said to them or presented to them, they weren't going to change that fact. And if I can take everyone back to the meeting that we had with them last Thursday, and last Thursday was the first consultation meeting we had with Qantas, and I know there were varying views on why the association hadn't met with them earlier, but the reality is that we wanted to make sure everything was perfect before we went into that meeting, and we knew exactly what we needed to say. I have a message here from Ross Richardson, who wants to be in the video. Okay, Ross. So yeah, we wanted to get our ducks in a row before we went into the first consultation meeting over the redundancy/retrenchment process, hoping we don't get to a retrenchment process. And in order to do that, we had to get our proper advice and we had to get authorities from everyone, and we needed an indication of where you wanted to go. But because we were so well prepared, the meeting was extensive. That is, it lasted 5 hours, and we had a list of maybe, well, it was over 100 questions that we wanted to ask. So we weren't beating around the bush with what we were trying to achieve through that process. And yeah, I wasn't at meetings that other unions had, but I would imagine that the ALAEA has met with Qantas now for at least as long as other unions, whether they be engineering unions or in other parts of the business. One area that took some part of the larger meeting last Thursday was related to the expression of interest process. Expression of interest process is pretty important because the prime mitigation for those people who want to remain employed is for others to take a VR package. And the more that take a VR package, the less people that are looking for work at the end of the process. So getting that right was crucial so that we could have people make decisions about their future with certainty. And making those decisions obviously involves, well, it's one of the biggest decisions anyone will make in their life. It involves discussions with your family, maybe a trip to your accountant to see whether you can or cannot take a VR package. And of course, any decision that an individual makes has a flow-on effect to those who need to have a job and can't select that as an option. We raised these concerns with management at the meeting last Thursday, but we also said to them we are eager to get this process underway. The position put to us by management was that they would desire to have the expression of interest out sometime this week. That was their words at the meeting. And our position was that, bear in mind, the meeting was on Thursday. We were in the federal court on Friday and couldn't work on it then. We had the weekend off, but first thing Monday, we would get stuck into having a look at their draft expressions of interest. Monday morning, I sent an email to Peter Smith of Qantas Management saying, listen, yep, we've started the work on the expressions of interest, and I will reply to you by the end of Monday briefly and fully on Wednesday after our executive has reviewed the concerns or problems / changes that we would like to see on the expression of interest process. That was all done from our end, but we started getting responses from Qantas by Monday night saying, oh, we're going to release it. And we were just gobsmacked. The emails, which I haven't forwarded to you guys, had things in there such as you agreed that we could release it, and you would have your final response to us on Monday, i.e., so we can release it Tuesday. And we adopted something different with the meeting that we had with Qantas Management last Thursday. We recorded the meeting. We wanted a record of the meeting so that we couldn't find ourselves doing what we find ourselves having to frequently do, and that is argue with Qantas in a courtroom what was and was not said at a meeting. For example, recently we've had a number of court cases, and hypothetically, although you may work out that this is quite accurate, Qantas will have an affidavit submitted with the things that happened at a meeting, and their affidavit and piece of paper will be 1 page long. Our piece of paper will be 9 pages long, and the meeting will have lasted over an hour. They go and attest on a witness stand that their version of the notes is more accurate than ours. So we're constantly in this struggle with the airline over what was and wasn't said at meetings, and judges and arbitrators in the Fair Work Commission are constantly trying to work out who's telling the truth. So we decided to record the meetings. Qantas wasn't happy about this, but we have a legal right to do that, and we're going to exercise that legal right so there is no confusion about this process. So back to the expression of interests, we were communicating effectively with Qantas, saying that, look, we're doing the work to get this matter resolved, and essentially have our target also to have expressions of interest out by the end of this week. They're saying, no, you agreed that you would have all of your desired changes to us by Monday night. Sorry, we've reviewed our recording, and that is certainly not what was said. We said we would start our work on Monday, and you said okay. Despite that, they continue to come back to us and say, no, you had an agreement. We don't make agreements like that with the airline for them to do things in a haphazard way, such as this expression of interest. So to the expression of interest itself, it has a number of concerns, some specific, some general. The specific concerns are things such as statements about staff travel, special trips that may fall due in the next 3 or so months. They'll get on there and say, we may honour any anniversary that's coming up in the next 3 months. And that's basically the end of it. And we asked, well, that's not very certain. We would like the word may changed to shall, so that we know that a long service trip or whatever it may be will be available as a right, not as something that is at their discretion. So we've written about some specific things like that. We've also written about our objection of their claims that the stand downs that are currently taking place were out of their control, and they are there because there is no use for work. We dispute that. That's been put back to them in writing. But then we go to the general concerns about the expression of interest process itself. Now, of course, we've got a large number of members all over the country who have varying views on what they think their future may hold. Some want a VR and some don't. And some are in the consideration period. They're trying to work out, can I afford it? Is the next couple of years looking as bright as I hope it would be? People are weighing all these things up. Very important for us generally is for people to know how much the payout figure would be. And there are a number of things that are just completely unknown at the moment. Things that are unknown is the outcome of, say, our case for the LAMI pay structure. And bear in mind, people's pay levels and increases into quota control positions have been put on hold pending the outcome of that process. So someone's payout figure and superannuation final average salary may vary wildly based on things that are still pending court judgments. Then there are the other bits and pieces. Well, how do you know how much money you're going to get if you don't know what your departure date is going to be? And we propose some common sense solutions to that, and that is put on the expression of interest form. You have 3 weeks or whatever it may be to reply, and if you reply yes that you're going to go, your departure date will be on this date, so that people know and there is some certainty. And then there's a couple of other payroll type issues on there, and bear in mind I'm doing this from memory, so I'll try as best as I can. Matters like the way that they say they're calculating day and lose and Z days, and they're talking about it being calculated on an 8-hour day, and we know most people are on an extended hour roster. What does that mean for the final payout figure? And then there is probably one that is really quite substantial when it comes to determining if you'll have enough money to take a VR package or not, and that is the outcome of the stand down case itself. That is, we say they shouldn't have stood people down, they say they had a right to. If we win that argument, it could be that everyone gets 4 months payback, and that 4 months pay may be what takes a number of people over the line towards making that decision to exit and create a vacancy for someone else. So actually I retract those words, not to create a vacancy for someone else, because that has specific meaning in the EBA, to make sure that someone is not retrenched. There was those general matters about the payroll outcome and your decisions. And then there are some other general matters in there, specifically if I go to the 2 question and answer documents that they sent out, and general statements at the bottom that the engineering question and answer form is not absolute. So there was a comment on there that said, to the extent of any inconsistency, the group question and answer form will prevail. That means that basically the Qantas engineering one is not worth the paper it's written on. I can write whatever I want in the other one. To make matters worse, all of the documents said that the terms and conditions, or something like, these Q&As don't form terms and conditions. We can change those terms and conditions at our discretion. And I don't know, would you go into a used car sale yard and accept terms when you buy a new car that says, oh yeah, and we can change the conditions, which might mean we can even change the car? Contractually, it would not be very wise to make the biggest decision in your life on terms that they say that they can change unilaterally. And for us, this is a very, very big problem that we think needs to be overcome. What that means, what that all means legally is that we've conducted ourselves in a satisfactory manner to put changes to the airline in the process of consultation that we were within, Qantas have just completely ignored everything we've put to them. They've ploughed ahead regardless. They've probably got their internal dates to meet their KPIs, and they don't really care. I don't really care what the ALAEA has to say, as long as they check the box to say that they've been to consultation. There's more to consultation than just going to a meeting and saying, we disagree with everything, bye-bye. Consultation, there is plenty of cases in Australia where consultation must be genuine. They must consider the things put by the other party and provide reasonable responses after a consideration period. And certainly there cannot be deemed to have been a consideration period if they've gone and done things before we've even put the questions we said that we would put. And then there were other questions that we did put that they also hadn't answered. So what that means legally is that we go back to a case that the ALAA ran in 2012, and I think it was concluded in 2013. We had a case about MOD. Gavin Harris come out and announced that 30 people were going to be made redundant. Let's start consultation. And ultimately, Qantas were fined heavily because they announced the number before the consultation. Therefore, the consultation was not genuine. Right now, we have two matters that fall into that category, and we are reviewing our legal position to that regard. Firstly, they announced that 630 engineers would go across the country, and they announced that 164 would leave from Sydney. We don't think that they can just walk into the meeting and say 164 people are going to be cut. We asked extensive questions about that to Qantas, to Mark Wade. How did they come up with the 164 number? And I think without reference to my notes and the exact words that appear on the recording, I'll try and do this as best as I can from memory. The questions or the answers given were along the lines of well, we calculated how much work there would be in future and how many people there would be. Question, what roster did you use? We used a combination of rosters. Which one? Well, the 8-hour roster and the extended hours rosters. Which 8-hour roster and which extended hour roster? Well, the extended hours ones from the terminals and the 8-hour roster. Okay, what portion of your calculation of the 164 related to people on an 8-hour roster versus people on an extended hours roster? That's where they started to really struggle answering the questions. And in the end, I think the answer was the 164 number would work exactly the same on an 8-hour roster as it would on an extended hours roster, which we find really, really dumbfounding. I mean, you cannot run the same number of people in Sydney on an 8-hour roster as you can on an extended hour roster. It's just farcical to think that the figures could come to the same number if you keyed in an 8-hour roster or an extended hour roster, because the extended hours roster, particularly at SDT, has inbuilt overtime. So 10%, they get 10% extra labour out of that. So it cannot be the case that an 8-hour roster, notwithstanding the inefficiencies and additional handover you need every day, it cannot be the case that they come to the same figure. But Qantas held their ground. No, it's 164 either way. So that matter is now one that we are looking into legally, because we already have a case history where Qantas had been fined for this behaviour before. Now this new matter has arisen with the expressions of interest being released prematurely. We say that we were mid-consultation and there were matters there that needed to be resolved so that people could make informed decisions about their future and whether they tick the leave or they tick the stay box. So I guess for the rest of this week, we're just, we'll be talking with our lawyers and so on. And I can't understate the importance of these matters for everyone, because I know there's a large body of people who do want to leave, and there's a large body of people that want to stay, and it's really important that we secure every last job for those who want to stay. And secondary to that is making sure that we get every last cent for those who want to go. All right, well, off the top of my head, that's about all I can sort of say at the moment. Look, just before I get to any questions, which I haven't seen too many come up yet, just before I get to questions, just want to state that this session is for our members and our members only, and nothing taken from anything I say can or should be used legally. The intended audience is our members only. So I put that. I'll put that notice of legal privilege on anything that I say. All right. If anyone has any questions, if not, I'll might put some lunch on. But fire away if you have, and just make sure comments are turned on, which I assume they would be, because when I started this thing, I had a few messages from people saying that they could hear me. And I still can't see any messages, but I might type one and see if that comes up. And if someone can please respond to that, and then I will know that you guys can respond. Otherwise, I'll have to change the settings. Okay, Marcello, that's okay. We've got a question coming through, so thank you. At least I know that the comments box is working. Should we refrain from responding to the EOI? I think there are a few different categories of member. I wouldn't see any danger responding to the expression of interest if you definitely want to stay. If you definitely want to stay, your decision is made anyway. So in that case, you could respond to the expression of interest. If you definitely want to leave and you are in Sydney, I would still wait a little bit, because there's going to be 3 weeks, and we're getting legal advice, which of course we will share with you guys. That may lead to a case, that may lead to an extension of the process, it may lead to a second process, it may lead to an open-ended process. There's no reason why anyone seeking VR in Sydney should check that box now. There are going to be enough opportunities for people in Sydney to take one of those 164 positions. If you are not in Sydney, I would imagine that there would be a rush for the gates in some places, and a concern that that gate would close. I would not want to buy into the decision of anyone outside of Sydney, or give any advice for anyone outside of Sydney on what to do. If you are very eager to go, you may well tick the I want to go box, and the ALAEA wouldn't oppose that. But if you're outside Sydney, we believe that that decision should be one that I can't advise on. If you do tick the yes, I want to leave box, we will still continue to represent you and do everything we can to make sure that you get every cent that is due. But in Sydney, it's probably pretty important for as many as possible just to hold off on your decision unless you definitely want to stay. And we have Dave Taylor here from Tamworth. Dave, a former ALAEA executive member. I'm not sure if there's any problems in Tamworth at the moment with Qantas Link. Brad James, a lot of people live outside the Sydney Basin. The prospect of an 8-hour roster would affect their decision to stay. That is very much the case, and yes, we put it to Mark Wade and the Qantas team that knowing what the roster is going to play into the decision that people will make about whether they want to take VR or not. We need to know what the roster is going to be. We asked them specifically what 8-hour roster were they considering? And the answer was, oh, it was genius. It's going to be days, arvos, and nights. And we're like, that's a 24-hour roster. Of course, we know it's going to cover 24 hours of the day. Can you give us more details? Oh, we don't have any more details. So that's the sort of engagement that we got from them when we were trying to seek information. 8-hour roster, just on the rules of 8-hour rosters for those who aren't fully aware. I think most of you are. The airline can just put you on an 8-hour roster without a vote or anything. So they can just force that upon you. And yes, if I was living an hour and a half from Sydney or in Picton or something like that, I wouldn't like to travel each day for an 8-hour roster, particularly if it was during peak hour. It will affect the decision, and that is a very good reason why we would be able to seek some court relief for them ploughing ahead and forcing people to make decisions before those key things that play into the decision are made. Johnny Pritchard, was there any discussion about whether or not the Sydney line maintenance will come into effect prior to redundancies? We asked questions about that, John, and they couldn't answer them. They basically couldn't answer anything about Sydney at all. I think I put it in email to you guys. Paul Kramer was very good. He seemed to be across every other base, but the biggest debate that we had with Mark Wade was whether he transferred to Sydney or before or after the decision was made. But no, they are going to get back to us with information on Sydney that would involve when the merger would take place, what rosters they were considering. So no information on that yet, John. Gav, will they state what shift will be implemented in Sydney as explained? Danny Sasinka, your team is doing an awesome job, thanks. And it is a team, and they are doing an awesome job. I can't express enough the gratitude owed to the likes of people like Brad Cox and Brett McClanahan and others who are doing things like writing precise notes from meetings that we attend, things that are very time consuming and cannot be done by everyone in our office. And certainly the seniors like Rod Wise and Luke Murray, who I probably spend more time on the phone to than I do my partner. Great work by everyone in the team, and it's certainly a joint effort. All right, going down the questions from Kev. I know of many stay and go people who have already responded. The EOI is non-binding, so why should it matter? Oh, that's the thing. That's the very reason why we thought this was a danger. So Kev, you get a piece of paper that says this is non-binding, and at the bottom it says we can change the terms of this bit of paper without your agreement. That may give you an idea of what the problem is. And the more specifically, I think on the email you guys would have got, they sent us a draft email. I haven't actually seen the email. On the email you got from them that contained the attachments, it specifically said that the agreement is non-binding on Qantas and the agreement is non-binding on the ALAEA. You go to the engineering question and answer, and the draft I saw anyway said the agreement or the expression is non-binding. Then you go to the Qantas group document and it says, well, the draft one did anyway, your expression is non-binding, that being Qantas are not obligated to honour your application to exit the business. So on the group one, which they say prevails to the extent of any inconsistency, the group one basically had a bit of an explanation of what non-binding means, and they only made reference to their rights, and their rights were to withdraw from it, and it was silent on whether an employee could withdraw. And my understanding is that there is plenty of previous cases that have occurred in Australia where people have applied to these non-binding processes and ultimately found themselves bound by the process. So be very careful, firstly, with the words and disclaimers written on those documents, and also something that I've known of for a long time, and most of you have as well. Be careful from anything that's ever said by a Qantas manager, because I don't find them to be too honest. Gav, with an amalgamation looming in Sydney, what is the go with line guys moving onto an existing shift and having to vote on a new extended hour roster as it is a new section? Gavin, the situation currently in Sydney, and this is how I would view the enterprise agreement and the terms within it. And just bear in mind, the extended hour roster clause has developed over the years. There was a change in maybe EBA 9 or 7, because it wasn't 8, because that was a workplace determination. But I recall specifically after the Perth roster decision, where it was found that Qantas or the ALAEA could withdraw from an extended hours roster. That was what was written into the agreement. That is, basically either party could withdraw. That became a legal clause post some changes to the Fair Work Act, and we had to amend the clause. And I remember working on it with Sue Bussell from Qantas, where the terms in the extended hours roster arrangements were written and inserted into the EBA. My view and understanding of that process, its development, and what we are left with now, is that in Sydney you have a number of extended hour rosters that are agreed and approved. And of course I'll miss one here, but let's look at them simply. Sydney International Terminal has an extended hours roster. Sam has an extended hours roster, and I'm not sure if the